Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Listen, nothing's going to be the same again. You know, all the way through history, first we had a gold standard. It lasted for ages, you know. And then we went into these fiat currencies. And basically fiat currencies that you print on paper. And their value is determined by the government itself. You know, they're as good as the government. You know, they're backed by the government's support and by decree by the government. So that's what we've been using. You know, with gold, it was a system that you couldn't tear it apart. It was rock solid. And the fiat paper monetary system had its flaws and had its weaknesses. But it was something similar. It was tangible. It was in the real world. You had your dollars in your wallet, and you could use them for commerce and for payments and for whatever, right? And it worked. It worked. All those years when King Dollar, the Reagan years, and so on, it worked. All of a sudden, we're trying something new now. We're in completely uncharted territory. What we've done is we've taken the dollars and we've digitized them and put them on the internet. And they only exist in the digital world. And what we've done is, we've never tried any of these things before. Well, I got a car sitting, I'm looking at it right now, it's right in front of this car. This car's still running, you know, by the way. This is my old car, and this is what I'm having to use now. But I bought a new car, you know, a Chevy Cruze. And I thought to myself, hey, this is a good idea, get a new car. My old car, you know, is getting old, and the shifter doesn't work good and stuff, you know. So I bought the new car. Little did I know is there's a disconnect between the gas pedal and the engine. There's a disconnect there. They've created essentially a third man or a third party in the middle called your car's computer. And so you go to push the gas pedal, it sends a signal to the computer, and then the computer transmits the signal to the throttle. Right? Well, my car doesn't work. And the reason why it doesn't work is basically it doesn't have the old-fashioned type system where you used to have a cable that ran between where your foot pushed the gas pedal and the engine. That system cannot be broken unless the cable breaks. But then you can see where the cable's broken and you can replace the cable easy enough. That's like our old monetary system. It's hard to break it. We use tangible money in the real world. Where'd that fly come from? Get out of here. Thing. Ruining my film. That's it. Fly out the window. Go on. There. Got rid of him. Damn thing. Anyway. We had real money that existed in the real world. And that was like the cable that leads from your gas pedal to your engine. It's a real solid thing that exists in the real world that makes your engine run. You push the gas pedal and the cable moves and the gas goes and the car goes. Now we've got a disconnect. Your gas pedal on your car doesn't do anything but pushes a sensor. And then the sensor tells the computer, and then the computer tells the throttle to open, right? This is the same thing they've done to the monetary system. They've created a disconnect from the real money that goes through the banks. The banks act like the computer in the car. See? It acts as a third party on every single transaction out there. You use your debit card at the store to buy something, right? And what happens is a signal goes to the bank, and then the bank sends a signal back to the store again. It's creating the exact same sort of disconnect why my car isn't functioning. Now, my car functioned good for a long time, and I didn't know. For a year or more, I owned that new car, and I didn't know that there was that disconnect there. Everything worked good, and that's the way with our system right now. Everything's working good, you know. But we don't know about the disconnect. And the disconnect has everything to do with the banking system. And what we have right now is we have a world where the whole credit and finance system is so over leveraged it could all of a sudden out of nowhere freeze. And because we've put our reliance upon this disconnect, in other words, money we've we've taken and moved our money into a position where it's only digits on a digital screen. Unless it gets that go-ahead, in other words, the banks are acting like the computer does on my car. If it doesn't get that go-ahead, then it doesn't move the money through the system. The same way as my car, if the computer doesn't give the go-ahead to the throttle, then I can push the gas pedal all I want and nothing happens. Because the computer says, oh, I don't know what to do. Because the computer isn't working right. And so all of a sudden, my throttle on my car doesn't work. And, I mean, at the gas station where I got the car, mechanics couldn't figure out what it was. You know, and finally they figured it out, and they said, well, it's the computer. And I said, well, how much is that going to cost? Well, you have to take it to a dealer. So now I'm sitting with the car in the driveway. It doesn't work. I had to run the car all the way home and idle it. And I'm lucky the gas station's only about a mile away or so. Idled it all the way home. Had no gas pedal. Now my car's sitting in the driveway. Don't know what to do with it. It's because of that disconnect. And this is what could happen with the system. The system could all of a sudden freeze up on us, and nobody knows what to do. Nobody realized the disconnect was even there. Suddenly, they would have to all go back to the cash again, or gold and silver, or some other way of doing business. Because, I mean, we cannot. Just like I had a hard time being without a car, it's even worse being without a financial system, with being without money. Everyone without money. Suddenly, if your money that you normally use, like on your debit cards and on your banking cards and everything else, what we've got used to using, and they've put this system in, it seems to work good, just like I got used to using my car, all of a sudden, if it stops, well, you're left stranded. Everyone would be left stranded. Now, here's a problem is, we can't be left stranded. Because what happens is the way this system is arranged, if there's a panic in the system and we're left stranded and nobody has any money and their bank cards won't work, if all of a sudden all of this stuff we normally use, all of our debit cards, our credit cards, our bank accounts are all of a sudden frozen and none of it works, we're going to be scrambling to see what cash we have in our pockets. We're going to quite literally be running upstairs, breaking open our kids' piggy banks, and how much change you got in there. That's what's going to happen. And a few days later, if the system wasn't, if they can't get it back up and running again, they say, oh no, the computer's fried, or the banking system is basically frozen. Days will start to pass, and very rapidly. And the system will be in a chaotic sort of a state. And who's going to fix it? Have they even thought about how to fix it? I mean, these academics out there have got us in this mess. They've put us in this pickle. We do not even know we're in a pickle because it's still functioning. It works great until it doesn't work. And now I'm going to talk about something entirely different. I'm going to talk about how the situation is coming where the stock market, I think, is getting ready to take a huge fall. I was expecting the stock market to go up early this week. I mean, I did a show on it, how I thought the stock market was going to go up, be buoyed, because of everything that's going on. We got the central bank easing policies come back again. We got quantitative easing, basically quantitative easing to infinity is here again. They've bailed out the repo market. I think it was like $180 billion or something like that of money they just poured into the repo market. Not enough. Poured in, we've been lowering interest rates, dropping them. I think we've dropped 50 basis points already and more to come. All of this news, and a temporary trade deal of some sort or another with the Chinese. All of this news coming together simultaneously, I thought the markets would be buoyed. Markets aren't going nowhere. Not going nowhere. On all that good stuff. Markets flat. Right? That's a bad omen. That's a bad sign. Something big and nasty is this way coming. Now, in just this week, toward the end of this week, the Europeans are going to sit down and they're going to try to hash out some sort of a deal with Boris Johnson. But they only got until like Thursday or whatever. And they want a finalized deal on the table. And Boris Johnson, he's pulling his hair out trying to get them some sort of a finalized deal, but he ain't got nothing. Boris Johnson is like right now is like a circus clown is juggling about 1,000 balls in the air, and all of a sudden about 50 of those 1,000 balls have fell down on the ground. They're bouncing around everywhere, and he's running around on the ground trying to grab all the balls and get them in the air again. He's doing his best. But this is an impossible situation with a deadline. Brexit alone could swing, because the economy's ready to go. It's sitting like a precipice on the edge of a cliff. It's like a car. You ever seen those movies where they got a car and it's sitting up on the edge of the cliff, you know, and there's a couple people sitting inside the car and they're looking at one another like, and the car's teetering back. First it teeters this way and then it teeters back this way, you know, and they're like looking at each other with fear in their eyes, you know? What would happen if something come on and fell on the hood of the car? All of a sudden the car tips over the cliff and down it goes. Just that one little extra thing, you know, just a drop of rain landing on the hood of the car. And down it goes down into the cliff because it didn't take much more to do it. And that's the way with the world economy right now. Everything's slowing down. All the charts, all the indicators right now, they're all sloping downwards. China is in such a huge mess. I cannot begin to describe the mess China's in. If you're thinking China's going to save us like they did back in 2008, they were in a totally different situation in 2008. And they could build ghost cities off into nowhere. They could do all kinds of infrastructure expenditures and everything else, you know, to try to prop up the rest of the world's economy and create demand like they did after 2008. China don't look to them to do that again. That's like the old thing, you know, where on Donald Duck, you know, on the old Looney Tune cartoons, you know. Donald Duck, he did this act on the show, you know, where he floated off to heaven afterwards, you know, and Bugs Bunny wanted him to do it again. He said, I can only do it once. That's you know, because he basically died in the attempt. You know, it's a one-act show, you know. That's the way with China right now. They can't do all this again. In fact, this time, somebody's going to have to help them. You know? The world right now is getting ready to change big time. Certain things out there are going to take advantage of these changes. Other things are not. The dollar is in for a rude awakening. Things are going to get really bad for the dollar. And I watched a show last night on, I think it was Greg Hunter, you know. He had a show and it was about, talked about the oil, you know, and how the American oil market is being propped up, investment into the shale oil industry, you know. And where's that money coming from? This is a big question. Where's the money coming from to the huge expenditures have been made in the shale oil industry? And I was doing some research on this myself a while ago, and I come to the conclusion that the banks are subsidizing the oil industry in the United States. And from where? From where the money's coming, because a lot of this oil is sold at a loss. It costs like $40 a barrel to get it out of the ground in West Texas in the Permian when they put those shale oil wells in. And that's a lot of cost. Whereas Saudi Arabia, it's only costing them $20 a barrel to get it out of the ground. So their profit margin's much, much, much greater. They can exist with a much lower oil cost because their profit margin is lower. And we're looking at the shale oil industry having to get like probably they start to become profitable at around $60 a barrel. Well, right now we're under that. So it's not a profitable industry, but they're getting funding. And I think a lot of there's explanations why this is happening. And I mean, you'd have to verify this before it's not just a theory. But how can you verify it when these sneaky sons of guns are so sneaky with how they spend the money And you can't see the channels underneath the surface of where this money is flowing. They won't let you see where it's coming from and where it's going on the other end, the money that they have. That huge voluminous amounts of money that they're using to support the system. Corruption is at the very core of this system, and this is the reason why everything's going to change very soon. And not for the better. We're going into a global depression, but it's not going to be a depression like in the 1930s. That was a deflationary depression. This time we're going into a global inflationary depression. Listen, it's Thanksgiving Day here. So I'm wishing you guys across the rest of Canada a happy Thanksgiving. I know the American Thanksgiving's a little bit different timing, you know. But, you know, really, we do have a lot to be thankful for. Even though things are bad, even though things could get worse, you have to realize things can also get better, too, you know. You have to see the bright side, you know, even though this world is being run by total corruption. Someday in the future, the corruption will be taken care of, ultimately. I don't know how, but I just know it will. I'm going to take an optimistic viewpoint on it. Listen, thank you guys for listening. Give me a thumbs up, and we'll catch you guys in the very next show. Bye-bye.